Okay.
Jeremiah for the win.
That's good. Welcome, everybody, to the Brenton On Tour podcast. We've got a panel of, how do I refer to them here? Vancouver's finest. Yes? No? Maybe so? We've got some people here. This is episode 9 and 10 of the Brenton On Tour podcast, breaking it up into 2 episodes where we're focusing on kind of continuing my journey from episode 2 about the Vancouver music scene. But we added a whole bunch of people to this talk about where music's going, where we see it going, content, media, all the rest of it. And we've pulled in a whole bunch of people from the Vancouver music scene. We're all jammed around a table at Nimbus, right? Christina, where are we at today?
We are at the historic home of Little Mountain Sound, which is Nimbus's satellite campus.
Graciously, they're producing this. They gave us a space, so I thank you for that. Garth Richardson at the end of the table. Sir, how are you?
Good, good.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the giant studio audience and our listeners abroad?
Garth. I do beats and I have a truck.
Garth Richardson does beats
and a truck.
And he has a truck. Yep. We'll get into Garth in a little while here. Next, who we got there?
My name is Doug. I play guitar. I played guitar for Biff Naked for a lot of years, toured with her for a lot of years. I have a studio, so I record bands. I've been doing that for a lot of years. And I've been producing video for the last while as well. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy.
Which you got to be in today's world. Right, Doug?
Yes, you do. Well, I do anyways.
Yeah. Mr. Hancock.
Well, you know, Doug stole the jack of all trades. That's what I was going to lead with. But my name is Todd Hancock. I used to do the afternoon show at CFox from 2002 to 2014. The morning show before that, the evening show before that. I was there for 15 years. When I was showing the door, a bunch of my friends, including the guy to my left here, Doug, we kind of talked about podcasting and how that was kind of taking off in 2014. It was prior to that, I suppose, but enough friends told me, why don't you try to get into podcasting instead of getting back to radio? And I just started my 6th year podcasting with the Toddcast podcast.
Yeah.
And I am now hell yeah. And I'm also one of the instructors for the Radio Arts and Entertainment course at BCIT.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. He's also presenting, the Toddcast podcast is also presenting the Brenton On Tour Music Cast, this series of 10 that we're doing. So thanks for that, buddy. Appreciate it. That just basically means free coffee.
Right. So I'm here for the coffee.
It is Canadian industry, by the way. So, Lyle, how you doing?
Hi. Lyle Shawsey. I have recently got into the last 6-7 years of music management, promotion, consulting with artists. So I manage a few artists, and along the way, kind of got the opportunity in providing music services for today's modern music industry. A lot of the way, of course, artists make money is through this crazy stuff called merchandise. So I got into merchandise wholesaling, which has been a really fun opportunity to just drive down pure business entrepreneurial road. So combining my love of business and love of music and colliding them head on to help artists succeed.
That's the left side of the table. We're going to move to the right. Over here, Corinne Lee. Hi.
Hello. I'm the owner-operator of the Rio Theater. And I've been doing that for 10 years. So I see a lot of different bands and talent coming through the doors, from burlesque to comedy to live music. And in case you didn't hear about it, we had a big campaign a couple years ago to save the Rio, and we managed to raise $8 million to buy the place.
Way to go.
That's
awesome.
Save it from developers tearing it down. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. I travel quite a bit and talk to lots of people in the industry, and most people are pretty blown away that we were able to do that. So I feel proud, but I also feel like Vancouver should be proud because it was a huge community effort, and I haven't met anybody else who's managed to, do something like this where a community has come together like that to save their own local theater. So it's a an accomplishment for all of us.
It was.
Well, it was big enough that wasn't Ryan Reynolds tweeting about it and talking about, everybody gather around and save, one of the fixtures, the key fixtures in Vancouver.
Yeah, that was Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith was probably the biggest one who came forward, where he actually tweeted at us and said, "I'll donate some shows." He donated 2 sold-out shows, and then of course he had a heart attack, which was pretty intense. And we thought, oh well, there goes those 2 sold-out shows. But no, dude recovered and showed up. Wow. and donated all the proceeds made by it. So he is a superhero. But yeah, we love Ryan Reynolds. Basically tweeted and said, I donated, to us. And so, yeah, and Seth Rogen and also Elijah Wood, there was a handful of celebrities that jumped on board. I think the main thing is that they understand, I know this is more from the film side of things, but they understand how important the indie theater is, because you're not always showing your films at Cineplex. You're not always in the superhero movie. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're in some little cool indie film that needs a place to be seen. Also, most of these guys are big fans of live music too. So, and we can't afford to. We already have so many places we've lost, so we can't afford to lose any more.
Mm-hmm. Which we're going to get into, but I think it's crucial that you were here, Corinne, because you saved one of the gems of this city. So kudos to you for that, and giving bands and artists another place to play.
Thanks for the invite.
No problem, Dave.
My name's David Roberts. I guess I come from the artist side of things. I can kind of blame Garth a little bit for this because Garth was one of the first people that took a chance on our band. The band's called Washboard Union now. It used to be called Run GMC.
That's right.
And
badass.
Garth saw us play in a club one night and came up to us afterwards and said that we made him smile, and asked us if we'd come and record with him. And actually, in this facility, what was that, 2009, I think, 2012?
Yeah.
It all blurs together. But
a long time ago.
Yeah, so my perspective would definitely be from the artist side in these changing times, the way music is provided to people now and how people consume music, and how artists have to really do the punk thing and do it yourself.
And you got a great beard.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's just rented.
It's rented.
It's like, he also smells good too.
Just beard envy over here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Next.
I'm J.J. Cathcart, formerly of Scrape Records, the store, currently Scrape Records, the label, working and doing promotion with bands, signing bands, putting out product, CD-wise, vinyl-wise, manufacturing, all band merchandise, also doing concert promotion and production for local concert productions. And pleasure of Brent to invite down and want to shed some of the light on the retail landscape over the past 25 plus years that I've been involved in it, and how we've seen it shape. We'll get to that later on in the show. Beside me, we have.
And he's been a huge help for the Musicast, the podcast in general, but when we were coming out with more heavy metal artists that I had, like Ray from Korn and stuff, JJ hit all of his people and really helped me boost that episode. So thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting.
And at the end...
Hi, my name is Christina Lau. I am an artist advocate. For the last 4 years, I've worked in community and industry at Nimbus School of Recording and Media. So I help students with placement opportunities. I work with industry to get more career pathway visibility, and I also advocate on the board of directors for Music BC, which is very dear to my heart. And I will be soon freelancing as a consultant in media and entertainment. Specifically, one of my next projects will be with Prolific Media, helping to put together an education program in an entertainment hub and private members club and venue in Miami.
Doing some movies, other stuff too, which is great.
Yes, I'm also an actor, and you can find me in very small roles in lots of places.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thanks to our huge audience we have here coming out to Nimbus on a very, very cold January. Everybody, I gathered you all here because you basically I've been in Vancouver for 15 years. I would say a majority of you have been here as long, if not longer. and have seen the changes to the city. I covered the changes in episode 2 with Aaron Chapman, who was going to join us today, who wrote the Vancouver After Dark books on the Commodore, the Penthouse. Had a great historic run of the venues in Vancouver, past, present, and sort of where it's going. I wanted to cover a few subjects in the podcast, starting with Vancouver as a whole. So everyone's seen the changes. You've seen the coming, the Richards going away and the Town Pump and some of these artists that have come out of BC and Vancouver. And I'm just feeling like the city itself might be losing a bit of its musical identity from a live perspective because we're losing venues like crazy. And I just wanted to get everyone to kind of weigh in on where you think, where do you think the state of the industry is in Vancouver right now? From a live perspective, production, everything, studios. Doug, you had a studio here and you've closed it, but you're moving on to other things. So there's challenges in every single aspect of what we do. So I just kind of want to roll it around the table and you guys can just kind of chin wag away around it. Who wants to start? Because I want to, give me your kind of perspective on the Vancouver past venue-wise.
Who wants to start?
The Town Pump was the best place in Vancouver to watch a show.
It was. Yes. I was there.
If you didn't go, you missed a piece of history. Yes, the Commodore is bloody amazing, but the Town Pump is where every walk of music was given a chance to breathe long before anybody knew who the bands were.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
One thing I would add to that is when you mentioned Aaron Chapman, I got his book for Christmas. I made sure someone got it for me. And my daughter was looking at it, Vancouver After Dark, and she's 19 and, very interested in seeing live music. And she was like, wow, Vancouver seemed a lot cooler back then, So, it was interesting for the different generations to look back at that book and see all the various places that were happening and to know that, I can actually remember a lot of these places. So, it has changed a lot.
I'll say this really quick. Somebody said to me once back in the day, you went to the bar, that was your search engine. You went there to find out what was going on, who was playing. You didn't really know the bands. You didn't have these things that we all got plunked down in front of us and carry in our pockets and purses, etc. So you went to the bars to find out what was going on, and then your friends were there. So that was your social media too. And you found out who was going out with who and who was happening and who was a drummer and who was a guitar player and who was a DJ. And you went to the bars. It didn't matter who was playing. And then you hung out and watched the bands and formed opinion and you passed on good, bad, or indifferent thoughts about it. And that was social media.
That's right, yeah.
We didn't have the internet in our hand. We didn't have 50 million songs on Spotify walking around with us. So you went to the Town Pump or Richards on Richards or wherever, or some underground club at 3 a.m. that was serving something green for $6.
But you did read magazines.
And you read magazines.
And you read magazines for every band you could find.
Yeah, so we all come at it from a different generation. So as we talk about the past, all that has changed because, of course, real estate value in Vancouver has gone through the roof. And we're one of the top cities in the world as far as, certainly from a North American perspective. The value of the land has eliminated joints like Richards on Richards. They don't exist because they're now condos. It was just too valuable. The clubs couldn't keep up with the taxes. And so everything changed as a result of it. And that's why you had to raise $8 million to save your theater, is because someone wanted to buy it to do whatever the heck they were going to do and put a Gap store there or something.
Condos.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, we're talking about business, and all these bars have to make money. And they're not always full. Like, there's lots of nights where, again, I went and watched, bands like Tool on a Tuesday night at the Town Pump, and there's 100 people there,
There was also the electronic music influence too, that I really remember that, where before it was all about the bands and then it switched and became a lot more about electronic music, and so that was part of it as well.
Your point about the search engine being live. So one of the points I like touching on in some stuff, and my daughter's here today, and she reads through album credits, right? And that's how we would find out about producers. So a lot of people finding out about, when I was coming through, it was like, who's Bob Rock? And why is he producing these records? And then, wow, who's Garth Richardson? And then you're showing up on Kitty, and you're showing up on all these other records that, I'm in Ontario, I don't know, you're producing all these records, and Doug, you're showing up everywhere. People are showing, their names are showing up, and we could start going to see bands live, buy their record, pull the album credits there, read where everyone's going, and then everyone gets talking about, you got to go see this band. You go, I don't see that happening right now. A lot of people.
Yeah, that's lost now because you know what? You can no longer find who is actually doing what. You can't find it on Apple Music, Spotify. You can't find it anywhere.
You have to go to Wikipedia to get the results of who did what.
It's wrong, too.
Because Wikipedia is never wrong. So.
Well, Spotify does show the credits now. Who the writer is, who the producer is. Yeah, you got to dig for it.
Yeah,
but it's there.
You shouldn't have to.
Exactly, yeah. You're right.
Shouldn't be that hard.
Garth, did you find, how long have you been in Vancouver now?
I got here in 1997.
Was there a go-to venue for you to find bands?
A place called the 5 Star, with the other one that was on Richards. He was upstairs. It was the 5 Star.
Starfish Room.
Starfish Room. Yeah, so there with the Jesus Lizard. And David Yao, the singer, pissed all over the audience.
Wow.
The
memories.
Like rock and roll, right?
I think I've got a Jesus Lizard piss story too.
Yeah. So we used to go to all these CD rock halls. Right? It was great. Now it's just really kind of boring clubs.
Were you finding? And all of this question is for all of you. Like, were you finding? When I first moved here, I grabbed a Georgia Strait and find out where bands were playing and kind of going through the listings and all the rest of it. And people would tell me, go here, go there, go to Richards. Or Richards was still here when I was here, but I'm only 15 years here, so I'm probably shortest on the dais here. But did you go find bands there? Todd, you guys had to go from Seafox there. Doug, you guys trying to find bands in clubs to maybe produce? Or was it,
Well, for me, being a DJ on the rock station, it was one of those like, I felt that it was kind of up to me to get to know the scene, and I kind of just started to, just attach myself as much to the scene as I possibly could. And, being that I was a 25-year-old kid, that's all I wanted to do. That's the reason why I was a DJ, was because I love music. I'm a music spaz. So when I had basically it was like you got a carte blanche to go and see these shows. It's not costing me any money to go see these shows. So it was like, if it was at Dick's on Dick's, or it's a Starfish Room, or if it was the Town Pump, or the Media Club, or the Red Room, or the Roxy, or wherever, I didn't care where it was. I just wanted to see the bands that were playing our scene. So I think I may have had a bit of a different kind of feel for the scene than most, simply because I was a DJ at the rock station.
It's pretty cool when you get to go to clubs for free. And just watch everything that's going on. So Tuesday is Saturday, and you just go to everything.
Yeah, I mean, pretty lucky. But I mean, again, when you talk about the venues of Vancouver that in the past, it's for me, I'm going to echo the same thing that Lyle just said. These are the Town Pump. Do you remember when the Town Pump was doing those shows with, I think it was Molson Canadian, where they were like the blind date, small venue,
we did that Soundgarden show. It was so cool.
Soundgarden, like Soundgarden at this place that holds 200 people at the most. When are you ever going to see that again?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to weigh in as probably the newest person in Vancouver, and I have to say I'm pretty tirelessly optimistic, because when I first arrived here, I came from London, which is oversaturated. There are venues everywhere. There are pubs all over the place. It's steeped into their culture. And when I got here, I started a collective because I couldn't find where to play. So to your point, when you're talking about going out to the clubs and looking at the Georgia Strait for where to go and see things, what venues existed, I had nothing available to me that was easy for me to find. But what I did realize was when I did find those venues, a lot of them were really eager to put on shows. They just weren't able to find people to curate them in a way that was effective to today's audiences. And they also weren't marketing to audiences in a modern way. And I think that was the interesting thing for me. And I saw that more as an opportunity, but I missed what I heard was the golden age of when the documentary No Fun City came out. about Vancouver.
It's true.
I missed this. There was a gap. There was a gap in between what I've heard about as that golden era of rock age, and then the kind of age of the peak performance project and the age of the peak radio station, and a redefinition of Vancouver's music sound, or musical identity, and now moving into this really exciting underground mixed use space based culture of electronic, hip hop, R&B. Such crazy artists are coming out of Vancouver today. If you look at it in a different way, from venues that aren't actually music venues. And to me, that's a huge opportunity, but I think that the population of Vancouver and the audience in Vancouver needs to be developed for us to be able to fill those venues and create more of an identity.
I feel like there's always been underground spaces in Vancouver. Like I've pretty much grown up here, so I've been here since a long time. And so, yeah, whenever people from out of town would say there's nothing happening in Vancouver, I'm like, you just don't know where that is.
Yeah.
Because they're all underground.
Maybe I'm too old, but are there any speakeasy still? Is there like the after?
Well, it wouldn't be called,
raves?
it wouldn't, well, it's just like people just put things on in warehouse spaces.
Yeah.
Right,
and so
okay.
that's happened
So
all
that's
the way
the same
along.
thing, yeah.
That happened in the 80s, 90s,
70s,
still
60s,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, it's still going on. So, and the only thing is, I mean, before there were a lot of amazing spaces in Gastown and various places. And so just because of gentrification, there's less and less of those spaces. But people always can find a cool warehouse space in some, industrial area to put something on. Mm-hmm. So, I think that
sometimes those are the best shows.
Yeah, sometimes those are the best shows.
Yeah.
If you get a show into a non-standard venue, it can be, it's a whole creative process, it's a whole creative thing, even about where the show is and how the show is presented and all the different things that you overcome from playing in like a standard club, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, who's to say that rock and roll has to live in a bar, right? Yeah. So one thing I will say though is that so after playing with Biff for a long time, I played in a band called Scatterheart, and it was like, it was a brand new band, starting from scratch kind of thing. And the one thing that I really enjoyed about Scatterheart while we were going was our first CD release was at the Anza Club. And the Anza Club is like, capacity of 90 to 100 people, kind of dirty, gritty place. And that's where we did our release party. And it was a cool feeling to be able to go from the Anza Club and then to graduate to the next room, which was, it was Venue. So we did Venue. And then to graduate to Richards, and then to graduate to the Commodore. Like you kind of could feel progression and, a following building throughout each of those shows. And each of those venues kind of was like the next notch on your belt. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, the next goal is to fill up this room or to go with that room. And that, I don't know if that exists as much anymore, right? If you don't really have that. I think you caught
the tail end of that. Okay, it does exist from the standpoint of a promoter. I mean, Corinne, you see this, you have 400 people in your room, so you see the development of bands coming in. My niece Taylor's here. She's doing a bunch of shows between the Biltmore all the way up to the Vogue. She'll catch a band at the beginning and move up. I just had a tour manager send me a settlement sheet from the first Arkell show.
Yeah. Being
like, do you remember this show? And I was like, oh my God, that was like so long ago. And now they're, just doing 45,000 people in Hamilton, in the stadium. So it exists if it's bought properly, if the band is developed properly. But that doesn't, people are in a rush, right? People are in a rush to go for it. And Lyle, I mean, you've been in band management for a couple of years now, trying to, bands want it all like right away. Like, I mean, there's all these different struggles to that side of developing artists. So, I mean,
everybody wants it right away. The promoter wants it right away because they're putting, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 plus their staff, plus their night. They're putting whatever they're putting out for the artist. They're putting out advertising. They're putting out. If your band's not going to be there or your DJ's not going to be there, someone else should be in there that can do the business. That's how they're looking at it. They want something in there that is going to do the business. So they're taking a risk by putting you out there. And then there's that artist responsibility to be that bloody good so that they can graduate, hopefully, to the next room. But you also have a loyalty to the person who took a risk on you to build a relationship with them, maybe do another show, see if you can do a double, whatever you can do to, build your audience and build a relationship with that promoter, because you need each promoter talking about each show, because they're going to say, hey, this band was really good. They might know somebody in Hamilton, and then all of a sudden your phone's ringing from somebody in Hamilton going, hey, I hear you guys are a really good act. So you need so many things to go right at the beginning. So it still comes down to the people who sing and write and perform have got to be fantastic performers. They've got to have songs. They've got to have audience, whether it's small or whether it's small and growing. That's everybody, every artist is in the audience business in today's modern music business, because you have an audience on social and you have an audience on Spotify, iTunes, Google, etc., and YouTube. So you've got all these audiences you're playing with. They could be very different. There's people who don't use Spotify that use YouTube, and vice versa. So you've got all these things to work on, and everybody wants a result now. Everything's a stock report today. Artists can look at their results, and artists for Spotify or this, that, and the other thing. You get all these analytics now, and the promoters want that now because they don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to wait for the Tuesday music charts to be published. It's a very, very now business, and so it is difficult. And at the end of the day, this is the entertainment business. So be bloody entertaining.
Well, too, you have to realize too that nobody is actually waiting for a really shitty song.
No. Strange, eh?
And so many bands spend more time on their actual social media thing. If they just actually sat and actually turned off all of their data
What a concept.
and learned how to properly write a song.
Led Zeppelin didn't make it on a Facebook.
No. Zeppelin, who, Jackson Brown.
They made it because they had
you
songs.
Name it. Yeah, because
they had songs and performances.
They didn't have a phone that was always actually by you. They would spend
them.
hours and days learning how to write songs.
Yeah.
And Garth, I believe we have a program for that.
Yes.
In case anyone's interested in the artist development program.
Yes.
So to back up part of this really quick about the modern business, but also the business in general, I've talked about this with some of you on the panel here before, but it's very interesting. Modern statistic is, of course, everybody knows what Spotify is, but Spotify itself admitted that 97% of the content that they put up in the last 12 months, 97% of it will struggle to have 100,000 streams worldwide.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's low too.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think it's low.
Struggle. Like most people, most artists will get to, 10, 20,000 and good. They're building an audience. That's what the game is. But it'll take a year or two sometimes for an independent artist playing local clubs, opening up for cool international or Canadian national bands to get to 100,000 on one song.
Yeah.
And
if you write a great song, that'll happen overnight.
Right. If you have fantastic songs and you've got a good team around you to help promote it, and you're going to get off your butt and support it, and whether you're a DJ or a country act or whatever the heck you are, get out there and play and perform and share it and buy some advertising and do the right things, give audiences an opportunity to find you.
Can I ask Karina a question, actually, just on that note? Because the RIA is just a really wonderful sized theatre. So I wanted to ask you just on that note, how, with the people that book that size theatre, what do you notice as the trends of what they've done to get up to that point?
Yeah, it's interesting because I see we see a lot of acts that are either about to blow up. Like occasionally we've gotten somebody who played the Rio, and then next thing you know, they're in stadiums because they just happen to be blowing up. And then you see artists like Willow Smith, who I think she was so inexperienced in performing in live spaces that there was a lot of trepidation from her people and all of this stuff about how the show was going to go, and so you really felt like someone like her needed a smaller venue, actually, like she can draw the crowd because she's Willow Smith. But then she didn't have the experience, like you're saying, of just playing live shows. So that's kind of the issues of the different sizes of venues. Right. That if you I think that's kind of the problem of having too few venues. If you have lots,
I'm sure Dave, you could attest to that. Like, there's so many times you're like, "Are we playing the right venue tonight?" Sometimes it's too small. Sometimes it's too big.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and this is why having a good team on your side is so crucial, because your agent will prevent you from making those mistakes. You want to play everything. You want to play the biggest show you can.
Some agents.
Yeah, some agents.
Sometimes
you just got to go out there no matter what, right? Like sometimes you still got to go. Okay, we're 300 people sold on a 700 person room, but there's 300 people here.
And no diss to Willow Smith, because I know my daughter was actually at that show and still thought it was fun, but you could just really sense the lack of confidence of just performing live. And, you know, as we all know, the people who are really successful as live musicians, it's because they've done a lot of it. And they've done the small venues, you know, working their way up. Speaking to what you were saying about wanting things to happen fast. So,
it's 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah, and that can be devastating to an artist, though, when you play the wrong room at the wrong time. It kills your confidence. They can. I mean, it's the rush. So
I booked a band recently. They don't need to talk about it, but who it was. But we all knew when we booked it that it wasn't going to even be 50% sold out. Everybody, the promoter knew it, the agent knew it, I knew it, the band knew it. But you know, there was a decent amount of money on the table, and we had 3 nights off. So you go play a show, and you play to the 350 people that were there, not the 350 people who aren't there. So you still have to be in the audience business and take care of the fans that are enjoying you, laying down their money, coming out, and this happened to be on a Sunday night. And it's like you still got to be, again, in the business of entertaining and connecting with your audience.
Yeah, I did a band that actually headline leads 60 to 70,000 people. They played the actual Commodore here, 1,000 people, the same show. It was insane that it was like, you guys,
Biffy Clyro?
Yeah.
Some of the Vogue, it was great.
Yeah. Same, 60,000 people, and when they came here, it was the exact same show, and it was even harder. Like you actually gave it. So everybody has to entertain. There's no off night, because you know what? Somebody might actually see that band, and then that could be the extra kicking stone to get you to the top.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, one of the interesting things that I'm seeing lately, guys, is bands are now, because of the lack of venues in Vancouver, or certainly the lack of venues that are maybe 100 to 200 people, which is what, if you're putting together a bill and you got 2 other bands that you want to play with, and you got 3 bands, and between the 3, you're thinking, okay, well, we should be able to get at least 100 people out. Because there's that lack of the venues in Vancouver, I'm starting to see now bands are just doing house parties. Yeah. They're literally playing a house, which is not a bad thing.
Todd, my band was huge in house parties. We went copper, man.
Back to what Doug was saying. I can't remember what the point was. I remember you were saying something, and I was like, man, I want to get this the house party thing in, and the point of the house party is, you'll remember the house party before you're going to remember the media club.
Scatterheart was like that. Scatterheart did all the great. You guys, your singer had wings. But that was a thing.
Yes, he did.
But I'm saying it was like you guys were going at that. It was rad. I mean, the band was totally they looked amazing at the Commodore when it got to that point, and you broke it in so many different levels.
Yeah,
you guys were on the grassroots level, and I think you were at the tail end of that.
Yeah, and a lot of that was taking chances. Put it this way, when you're a band and you're going to buy, so you're relatively unknown, maybe in mainstream, so you approach the venue and you say, okay, we're going to sell this place out. And you, of course, they're pretty hesitant and pretty looking at you a little cross-eyed, like, oh, really? And I said, yes, we're going to sell this place out. Give us top dollar for this show. If they're offering you low buck, it's up to the band to all of a sudden go, okay, we're confident we can sell the place out. How much is it for your room? I'll buy your room for the night.
Yeah. Right. What's the sound guy?
I'm taking everything. Yeah. That's how confident you got to be. Yeah, that's how confident.
Welcome to the new big
and so
deal.
For that band, how much did you use social media? Was that even a factor into breaking the band?
At that point in time, translating social media to real world was an interesting mix that was going on, because I was of the old school, which is like, shake somebody's hand, give them a ticket, they're going to be at the show.
Right. Crush the show.
Yeah. So it was a lot of like, hand to hand and old school hand billing and stuff like that. But then social media was just taking off, and that was Wes, our bass player, well, he's an internet guy. So he was more pushing the online thing. So our band was kind of this hybrid thing at that time when social media was kind of a newer type way to promote. And now I think it's flipped the other way, where everything is very social media. But I still believe that the flake factor is way higher in social media or digital than face to face or contact.
Yeah. And Doug, that was only 2 years
100%.
Oh, the good old.
I got to move on, guys. To 1 second. I'm going to move on for 1 second before I want to move on to music production because Garth has to run off the NAM. What we're going to do, I want. Do you guys have a favorite gig locally that you've seen over the last, what's your favorite? The Soundgarden, small room. Have you guys? Is there a favorite show that you've seen in Vancouver? And then I want to move on to the new state of record production.
Are we talking recent or like long time ago?
In general?
Yeah. What's been your favorite show?
That's a tough one.
Wow. In Vancouver, I'm saying. In Vancouver, in the scene, Richards.
Yeah, that's like saying, what's your favorite kid?
Yeah, right.
Let me see here. I got two of them here.
I can say one of my favorite that we just had at the Rio not long ago was Lee Fields. He's like James Brown.
Oh, he
soul.
plays with Sharon.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know that much about him, booking him at the Rio, and I ended up going to the concert and had everybody standing up, like not one person sitting down, and everybody was just so into it. And it was, that was pretty exciting. And just to see at the Rio, a lot of times people will watch shows, say 70% of the people sitting with some people crowding up front, but to have the entire room up on their feet was really, really exciting.
I don't know. It's hard to pick.
Come on, pick one, Garth. Don't be like that.
I can't. I just can't do it.
Have any of the bands you've produced, though, that had blown up, had come into that small room in town, you're like, wow, this is like Sam and the Commodore.
Yeah, it's a band that we talked about, Biffy Clyro. Yeah, the show was just like, wow.
Yeah. I saw it at the Vogue. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Doug, anything jumping out?
Let's see. I saw Mastodon and Clutch at
That was a great
at the
show.
Commodore. That was a pretty good show.
I saw that as well.
And then there was a show at the Railway fairly recently, ska music in Vancouver.
No way.
Yeah, I recorded a couple bands that were playing that night, and they had 3 other bands, and it was just like a whole ska night. And that crowd dances, they party, they have a great time. And it's not the cool kid music right now, but there's a thing going on in Vancouver, and it's a very kind of micro scene, and I appreciate that.
Taylor, what's the name of the band that the ska band that's really big right now? Not to put you on the spot, but it was C-Fox is playing them like crazy. The Interrupters. They're bringing it back a little bit.
Yeah.
The Interrupters are bringing back that ska rock thing that's happening. I'm seeing a lot of bands pop up like that now.
Yeah.
It's kind of cycled back around.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I think from a large scale, a few years ago, would be Roger Waters' The Wall at BC Place. That was unbelievable. From a medium scale in the late 80s, Public Enemy at the Orpheum blew my mind, changed my life.
Wow. Did anybody see the Tragically Hip at Dicks on Dicks?
Not I.
No, just you, I think.
I was there.
And then from a small scale, there's so many shows that I saw at the Town Pump, but a couple that really stood out was like one night we watched Living Colour, and then the next night we watched Tracy Chapman. So like that's the kind of diversity that you'd get in that venue. And I always like live stuff where there's a guitar or something with a lot of soul. So it was really cool to be able to go to that dynamic.
I saw a Zach Wilde acoustic at Town Pump.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was great. It was a good night.
Dave? I'm sorry, one of my favorite gigs was Run GMC at the Media Club. Okay, go ahead.
A little louder, please. A little louder.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd say it would be Radiohead at the Rage. Wow. And then I just saw this cat, Donnie Benet, at the Fox about 3 months ago, which I thought was a great show.
That was a private event, that Radiohead gig. How'd you get in?
I snuck in.
He knows people.
JJ, what do you got?
Thinking back to a classic club show, Bruce Dickinson, Iron Maiden at Studebaker's with Geezer Butler opening. Nice. That was not only an amazing show, but that whole day of and day after, had the pleasure of having Bruce Dickinson do an autograph session when I was working at HMV, and that was the first main autograph session that I ever set up that led into Lyle a number of years later helped me with Cradle of Filth and other bands at Scrape. But to have Bruce Dickinson
Lamb
hang
of
with
God
him
was
that
awesome.
day. Also did a hangout with him later that day on his bus for longer than we should have. He was more than pleasant, but his manager ended up coming back at one point and said, "I think you're done." And it's like, yeah, we've spent more than enough time with Bruce, but went down to see him the next day playing even in a smaller room in Everett in Washington and hanging around, just hoping to get in early. And we're actually lucky enough to do an interview with Geezer the next night in Everett. But after that was done, because we got down there early for the interview, all of a sudden Bruce just kind of appears in the distance, and you see Bruce there, and then Bruce peers over and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You're just standing here." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, and he sees that there's a massive line already building to go into the room, and he's like, no, you come in with us. And Bruce at that time also had Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden in his band, and Bruce is leading my wife and I into the club, and we got to hang out during sound check. It was ridiculous. Like, I still need to be slapped upside the head for that. That was amazing.
Did you take him to the Moose?
Pardon me?
Did you take him to the Moose?
There was no Moose at that point. No, that was
pre-Moose.
That was back in 1970, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly, 1970. Yeah. Quick one at the Forum, Pantera opening for Skid Row on Slave to the Grind. That was ridiculous. That was the week that Vulgar Display of Power came out. Actually, I think it was the day even after it came out. And there was a guy beside me who was singing every word to Vulgar Display of Power. And I'm like, again, this is pre-internet, this is pre-streaming, this is pre-torrent.
And then Soundgarden was headlining the Commodore that night. And if you went to after that, you head right down to the Commodore, and Soundgarden was gigging.
And then last one I'll say, first time seeing Rush at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're going to go on Rush in a little
JJ,
while.
I drove down from Summerland to Vancouver for that Skid Row Pantera show. Saw the show. It's in winter.
It was, it was March. March 92. 28 years ago in 2 months.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ridiculous with that stuff.
So I saw the show, and I drove back on the Crow's Nest to work that next morning in Summerland.
Wow.
So this is just a reasonably hand-drawn facsimile of you right now. You don't actually exist anymore.
Yes. Christina?
On a larger scale, I am a massive fan of Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and I saw them at the Chan Center. And that was just unbelievable. And I took my favorite date, my mum, who had never heard of Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and she enjoyed it a lot. But on a much smaller scale, I'm a big fan of grassroots collectives here. And Locals Lounge at the Railway is once a month, and they do an incredible job, and they curate so beautifully. And it's a listening audience, which is so rare in Vancouver. And they really make a big deal of really honoring local touring musicians and people who are making a good living from music, and coupling them with a supporting artist who is emerging, which I think gives, exactly as you'd said so well, I think it was Doug that said it so well, that it adds to the rungs of the ladder. It gives you places to step up. And then secondly, Stew Jams, which is an underground, another collective that's kind of hip hop, R&B, electronic, has a huge social conscience, and they're just filled with these really young, energetic people who put it together once a month at the Redgate Art Society, and it's just it is full, it is packed, and it's so full of energy. If you haven't checked out either of those two things, I think it's 100% worth doing.
As much anymore, but hearing that there's all these new things going on is encouraging.
It's so exciting.
And you, Todd, for the Toddcast podcast.
Yeah, that's right. I do the last Friday of every month at the Railway.
Great
generally rock, because that's what I know, but sometimes I've done country nights, I've done soul nights.
You've got a great Baroque collection as well.
And yes, and then quarterly I also do, and this is kind of selfish, I guess, because I kind of want to still keep my hand in radio, but I do every 3 months I'll do a question and answer / acoustic performance with an artist. I just actually did Todd Kearns was the last one in December. And I've got Wide Mouth Mason coming up, which has not been announced yet. I guess I just did. Yeah. Which is coming in March 12th or 14th or something like that. So, and those are pretty fun shows because, you get to kind of get to know the artist a little bit more than just, the surface of, of what they're doing. It's an interesting night.
I want to take it to a spot now. Garth,
yes.
Let's start with you. From a production standpoint, Garth and Doug, and we can run the table on this because it kind of goes in order. So what I want to do is producing bands now. The new way to produce bands, if there is one. We were talking earlier about a lot of bands are just producing records out of their home, like right in their room. Billie Eilish, some of these artists are making stuff at home.
Well, you go back to Moby's Porcelain.
Sure, but it's very prominent.
Like,
I mean, they
literally in his living room.
Totally. And my question from the production side of it, how is producing records changed now? Because
it hasn't, because oh dear.
Or how are you guys getting paid?
It hasn't because it has always actually been about a song. The thing is that now we can store the data on your actual laptop. You can have it on your phone. The Pink Floyd, The Wall record, half of it was made on actually David Gilmour's boat. So everything, it's still the same game. It's just that we don't have the money anymore because nobody is actually buying actually a product. But you are now getting these actual streaming companies within 5 more years. You're going to see Rogers, you're going to see TELUS, you're going to see Google buying Sony, you're going to see all of the major labels are going to be bought up. And then there's going to be so much more money there, but it isn't falling down to the bands. It's only going into the whose pockets.
The old way was, you're saying bands will come to you guys, Doug. They'll come to you with $5,000 and say, make me 20 songs. A real record company, what was it before?
Before was anywhere between $200,000 to $600,000 per record for 3 months' work.
Plus, you would get maybe a piece of the record.
And you get a piece of the record. Now, actual good budget's probably $50,000.
Garth gets that kind of money.
Doug just a piece of a penny.
$49,000. $49,000 is what we get. Yeah.
What, Doug? What are bands bringing you for money?
I'm dealing with. So my studio, I was dealing maybe a rung down from what Garth is recording. Put it that way, but in budgets, I record a lot of great artists, and I'm proud of everything that I've had come through the studio. Because you don't have budget doesn't mean that you don't have something going on. So,
in fact, probably most bands that are up and coming don't have the budget.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And here's the thing: is that there's benefits, and the benefits to recording technology changing is that the cost is a lot lower, but the downside is that the barrier to entry is a lot lower too. So there's a lot more noise out there. So I would say, I guess I'm dealing with indie bands that are coming at me saying a lot of them want to do songs or EPs now, or maybe they would do full albums, and they're doing it for the love. Like they have a passion, they have a song that they want to hear. They want to hear it rip through their speakers, and they're like, I need to get this out, and I want it out the best way possible. And that's my job, is to be like, okay, let's make this sound as good as it can sound, and let's work within your budget. But you're going to bat a lot more than you ever were before. The jobs are all as you know, there's engineers, are producers, which are mixers, which are, you know what I mean?
Well, it's also that they're also comparing what they want to sound like to somebody that has spent $700,000 on a record. This one mix, the mix was actually $3,000, and they came back and said it doesn't sound like Fleetwood Mac Rumors. And I went, because they spent about $1.5 million on the record, and you spent $5,000 in your basement.
Can I ask, in this day and age of so many artists creating so much of their own content, and then they come to you and they realize, okay, I want to work with somebody outside of myself to produce this. How often are you having that discussion, the tough love discussion with an artist of they really don't think you really don't have what you think you have?
Always.
In other words, you kind of suck.
Well,
without losing the client.
No,
like you basically say you don't have.
My job is my job is to say no. That is not good enough.
Because you have your name's on it too.
That's not a chorus. That's a good verse.
Right.
You don't have a chorus in the song. Yeah, but it's not a chorus. That's not a chorus.
Right.
You know, Dave can actually, actually back me on this. I gave these guys hell. I was like, no, the songs weren't there. Go back and write more. Go back and write more.
Yeah. Garth would come to our rehearsal studio and stand in the middle of the room and listen to our rehearsals and listen to the songs. And then we'd sit
would
there.
He yell?
No, he wouldn't yell.
I wouldn't yell. I just throw food.
He walked out a couple times, but
It's how many times it's been proven that a great song that's recorded not so well will pop, but a so-so song that's recorded beautifully, meh, will be a reaction you get.
Always be a reaction.
Yeah.
Are we still under
it
the
always comes back to the fundamentals.
Are we still under the restraints though of obviously the labels have changed from the standpoint of there's still some really awful songs on the radio.
Yeah, but that's always been the way.
You know,
Who let the dogs out?
What's with that, actually? Like, this is one of my big frustrations is why does Vancouver not have good radio as far as, you're just hearing the same pop songs over and over, or
It's not just Vancouver.
or
It's everywhere.
or it's the classic rock. So you got your classic rock option, or you got the same old pop songs over and over again. But Vancouver's worse. I'll say this because when you travel, like my daughter and I are always listening to music and stuff, and we'll travel and be like, how come they've got at least a hip hop station? At least there's at least something else in other cities. Here, nothing. What's up with that?
We don't have the population dynamics to support multi-formats that people would like in this city and in this country. We're still a country of only 38 million people.
Really, though?
Yeah.
Because New Zealand has a pretty... I don't know. I'm going to disagree with that because I think that Vancouver, one of the studies that I did when I was first starting my collective, I think it has like 100,000 or maybe less than Nashville.
Yeah, but radio stations are dying, and they're owned by big corporate behemoths that answer to people in boardrooms, and they're not going to play what we want to hear, or these people want to hear, or minute amounts of people want to hear. That 97% of people that are listening to Spotify at 100,000, they want to play the top 200 songs on Billboard per their format. That they want to play the best country, they want to play the best rock, they want to play the best pop, they want to sell ads to Walmart and Chevrolet and whoever else. They don't care what you listen to, they care that they have big numbers.
Fine, but that's not a population thing.
No, but
that's a choice.
That's
a
working
different
with
thing.
each population. So when you're working with Vancouver, the Vancouver radio signal only goes so far. Once you get to Surrey, Langley area, it disappears.
Right.
So you're missing hundreds of thousands of people past that. And there's no good radio stations but beyond that. And it sort of echoes what we were talking about in the club scene. We have a shitty club scene. Part of the reason is because the club scene's never expanded past Main Street.
Right.
It doesn't go past Main Street. If you've played the Commodore, your next gig's in Kelowna or Calgary.
Right.
I did a gig with Doug years ago in Chilliwack or with Biff. And there used to be a couple of radio stations here, right? There was XF. What was the other radio station?
It was XFM repeater in Abbotsford.
They had the Valley.
But it's turned into a country station.
They had a rad station. To me, they used to play all the really good. They played a lot of rock out that way, and I would do shows with Doug, with Biff out there. But there was 300 people in a club. It's like, oh, we got 1 million people on the other side of the bridge, but there's only 300 people here because people, we're going downtown. So,
but that's 15 years ago, and now nobody can afford to live in Vancouver, so they all live in Surrey, Langley, and Abbotsford.
It's all open a club.
So it's all changed, and that's why the Abbotsford Arena has sold out shows.
That's a point too. For a band to have to tour today, it costs them because they have to pay the label, the managers, the agents, the crew, the truck, the lights, the PA.
$1.40 for a liter of gas.
Air Canada.
$1.40 for a liter. I used to do sound for a band called actually Sheriff. I got paid $200 a week. Every single Friday, I'd have a steak. Because that was when we got paid. The band would split actual plate of fries. Yeah. So it's harder and harder even now to have a band tour.
Yeah, it's very, very expensive. We just did a bunch of settlements again for one of the bands I manage, and the bands when they see the statements are always shocked what's left.
Well, it's because Canada's so big.
Yeah, but there's still only 38 million people, and you got to go 12 hours to get to Calgary, which is the next biggest population.
Yeah, and I was on tour last year, and it was, I was on tour in England, and we were doing shows, and there were so many theaters, and within 5 hours we were at the other end of the country. Yeah. Whereas here, in 5 hours, you get to the end of your driveway.
Yeah,
I spent about 5 months, 6 months a year in Europe doing shows.
Right.
There's no doubt that every scene has their own thing. Right, they all have their own. Toronto, Queen Street, Vancouver was known for a really healthy music scene. Christina, to your point, there's new venues popping up now, so hopefully it'll invigorate the city again and bring it back. But in Europe, it's different. Rock is very prominent over there. You'll go radio over there, you'll hear Iron Maiden beside the new, like a new U2 song. It's weird. They just don't care. Just like that's how their festivals are curated. They don't care. You'll see Florence and the Machine and then Slayer.
Yeah.
Like they don't care. So just Canada, North America as a whole, they're still...
Yeah, it's very different market.
Very different
I don't know
market.
that they don't care. I think that they just realize that that's what people want.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. That's my point. Like it's just sort of like we're just going to put all these people together and go for it. And they try over here. But like Coachella, finally has rock with your boys in Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Rage is back.
The
So
biggest, one of the biggest bands of all time, produced by our friend Garth down the way here. But people are complaining. They're always going to complain about something. So we got to rock back on Coachella, but then we don't have enough of something else.
Yeah.
And for years it was
the
only
internet
pop.
age of whining, though, right?
But over in Europe, people would look at that lineup and go, "Holy!" My niece who's sitting in the crowd, she went and worked at a festival this year. And I'd bring her up here, but she's got a cold. So, but she went over there, and they had, 45 bands over there, and everyone was loving every single band. And they try. But Christina, you would speak to the Europe because you came from London and all that. But North
America's not diverse enough that way culturally.
And can I ask a question here? Because this is an observation, and it's purely subjective. But one of the things that I was kind of ruminating on when I thought about the whole artist development thing was, in England, you grow up and you go to the pub with your parents and you listen to the music that's being played multi-generationally. And here, there are such strict laws on drinking. There are so few all-ages venues. In England, when I was living there, you can be 16 years old and with your parents in a pub and listening to live music, and there's always live music in the village pub. So here, I think there's this huge divide between being a young person and being a parent, and you're not merging those two things. And I wonder if that's something that causes audiences to fracture a little bit generationally.
I think you're absolutely right, because again, you got all these kids growing up in the burbs. They're forced to live where they are and where their parents have put them. And when they turn 18, 19, whatever of age, they're going to go to the local pub, and the local pub's going to be playing top 40, either top 40 bands that are just trying to hack out a living, or it's just a side gig that keeps them all satisfied, or they're going to be playing music that's in the pub, which is some Stingray channel or somebody's playlist from the DJ behind the bar. They're really just trying to sell drinks, and I understand that that's their business. They're making money selling goods and services, but they're not developing a scene. They're not developing a culture.
Right.
They're not coming at it. A lot of these places are owned again by big companies, and they're not a small independent company like the Rio, who's like trying to satisfy a demand for hip hop or acoustic or whatever they're trying to satisfy.
What I can speak to is that we actually have a lot of all ages shows at the Rio. Because there is a shortage of venues. There's most all ages shows can't go to a bar downtown.
I know, and licensing.
Because of our space is so multi-use, we end up getting a lot of the all ages shows, and the young people are huge fans, very supportive. They they buy tons of merch. They're super into it. And so it's been kind of, I'd say, inspiring for me to see all these all ages shows.
That's great.
So how do you help other venues? Like, what is it with this grandfather licensing? What do we have to do as a city?
Well, see, in our case, we got a license as a venue, but we're also a cinema, so we're kind of a unique situation.
And the Vogue is the same, right? The Vogue is grandfathered as well.
To do all ages shows as well, so you're allowed to mix it up. So, I mean, the liquor laws are just weird. I mean, that's a whole nother story, but we actually had to get the liquor laws changed in BC just so that we could show movies and have alcohol. So that was
Okay.
that was a whole other thing.
So again, I feel like these venues should come and talk to you, and you need to do a roundtable to help more venues get.
So many
Can I ask how you
license.
handle the whole legal weed thing in that whole thing too now? Like that's a real factor as a independent, right? Like there's a lot of audiences there's people who don't want to drink, but they want to smoke a joint, which is now legal. It's the same as it always is. So
you know,
how do you
everybody
handle
just
that?
people just smoke outside. It's the same as it's.
But how can you capitalize on it too as a business?
I don't feel it changes because I don't think consumption is. I think people smoke weed the same as they always have. I don't think it's ever changed. I don't think it's changed. But it's. I don't know. I mean, for all ages. I mean, you obviously have to watch out for pre-drinking because that's a thing for sure. But
pre-drinking as a teenager.
But yeah, I don't know. I just say
I did it tonight.
we do need more all ages venues because, like you say, it also keeps kids out of trouble. You know, like you got places to go. I mean, otherwise, I'm sure a lot of us, when you're young, you just end up hanging out in the park with your you know, with your Slurpee full of vodka or something. So having all ages venues, more of them, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I want to go to a spot. We're gonna wrap in about 15 here. I gotta get Garth on a plane. So. And Lyle, you're going on a plane too, so we'll get you guys out of here. JJ, I want to come to you for a minute on Scrape Records.
Yes.
So there was a stat recently released that people are kind of on the fence about. Vinyl sales are through the roof and CD sales are going down. But you know, like they're coming out digitally, we're coming out in CDs, vinyl, but you had a store, the store had to close. And then where are you now with the state of product?
Okay.
And where it's faced with, you know, what you're faced with.
First thing we'll try to be a bit clear about, and it's understandable that people will come up with any conclusion. Well, the typical conclusion when a business closes, it must be closing. Well, typically in this town, one of two things: probably rent went through the roof. That was your main reason to close, or you have no customers and you're not making any money and you can't pay your bills. You have to close. I'm a psychopath. I closed just because I wanted to close. Business was rocking. I just wanted to be expanding my knowledge and know-how in the music industry and wanted to take more challenges and risks and doing other things rather than suddenly being 812 years old and going, what did I do with my time and my life? And you don't expand and take chances like yourself without trying and growing and feeling some pain along the way. And the last near 4 years of not having the store has had its ups and downs. And I've been learning a lot, and things are definitely on the upswing, and being included in tonight is one of those cool opportunities. That was the hardest part in closing the store. Well, not just because sales were good, customer base was good. Loyalty to that store, primarily because it was of a hard rock and metal community, is one of the loyalist music fans you'll find. I still have people buying product off me, and it's cool that I'm actually still selling stuff for what it was even on the shelf for, or more. Online or
bringing it right to them.
Or somebody in here might be texting me or dropping me an email saying, "Hey, do you have a copy of this still?" And we meet up, or I bring it to a show. That happens often. I'm selling products still almost daily.
What was the biggest sell? What was the split between CD?
Well, here's the thing: is that I started at A&B now, like it was early 90s, went to HMV and then opened the store from there. Opened the store November 97. My last day at HMV was October 10th, 1997, and I opened the store November 1st, 1997. It was a pretty crazy couple of weeks there. But anyways, I was selling vinyl at HMV in 94, 95. I'd be calling the one place in the UK or in Germany that managed to still press a couple things, and I'd find these things, and I'd bring one or two copies into the store and put it on the shelf, and I'd sell these things. The managers now were going to like, this is insane. And it's like, well, I'll just bring in a couple and see what happens. And I'd even say, if they don't sell, I'll buy them. But I'd sell these things. And often I'd be mad I didn't keep one for myself because I wanted one later, and it was such a small pressing, all of a sudden it was gone. But anyways, fast forward to the store. Till the day I closed the doors, and through this whole last, maybe what is deemed as the last maybe 15 or so years, 10 years of this vinyl rise, I was still selling more units CD-wise and dollar-wise than vinyl, because it was never a trend in my world. It was always treated as an equal because it's physical media. There's some people that preferred the discs. There's some people that preferred the vinyl. And then there's a lot of weirdos, such as myself, that wanted both. Because I can't play vinyl in my car. I don't listen to stuff digitally. I don't stream. I don't rip stuff. So I have a CD for home. I have a CD for my vehicle because I have CD player built into my vehicle, aftermarket, because you can't get them anymore pretty much with the CD player anymore. I want one in there. I'm putting one in there. Got my turntable at home. I got my CD player at home. Really no different than us that are, from way back in the day that would buy a piece of vinyl and a cassette. Or you might buy your piece of vinyl and the blank tape to make your copy of the cassette to listen to your Walkman because, again, you don't have a portable media for your vinyl. So that's how I still look at it. Again, it's supporting the music, supporting the band, supporting the product, and quality of product as opposed to quantity of product. That's another
Garth
topic of
and Doug's
conversation.
point. It's all about the song.
Quantity.
It's always about the song.
It's always about the song, and it's always like again. I'm more. You can say that's more of an old school vibe, but it all comes around. Everything that's vintage becomes cool again at some point, no matter what it is.
Dave,
and the CD isn't far behind. Vinyl came around. It all circles around. Cassettes. That's one I still don't quite understand. But again, if somebody wants to support physical media and if it helps the industry, then I'm all for that.
Bring back the 8-track.
Dave, where do you guys find Washboard Union does most of their business? And obviously, right now you guys are selling CDs and vinyls, yeah?
Yeah, but definitely live for us is the lion's share.
Live,
yeah.
Merch too.
Merch and live, yeah. I mean, we're kind of fortunate because country kind of has a large demographic. So you'll sell a lot of shirts. You'll sell a lot of CDs to the older folks at the shows. So you're kind of in a lucky spot. It's kind of a sweet spot to be in.
Hey Dave, would you say to break something now? Is it what is like the holy grail? It's not terrestrial radio, obviously. Like what breaks a Washboard Union song now? And what is your like? What you guys are like? Okay, cool, we hit this.
Country still matters. Radio still matters in country. It's like flipping on a switch when your song gets played across the country on every single country radio station. Okay. And all of a sudden, people start showing up to your shows. They start seeing you more at the festivals. You start getting invited to the bigger and larger festivals. It still matters a lot.
Okay, interesting.
And you know what I wanted to say about that when we were talking about radio before is I feel like we're missing a big opportunity in Vancouver because if we're talking about the local live music scene, and if it's not tied into a radio station, then that's not happening. That collaborative relationship of what you're just saying, that like their songs aren't getting played on the radio. So then it's not encouraging people to come out to see stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if somebody started a radio station and did that.
Give me $1 million, I'll start one for you, any format you want. Well, look, we had the Beat that came into the market about 20 years ago, and it was serving the urban market that was massively growing in Vancouver's and North America's thirst for urban pop R&B. And it was owned and operated by basically a couple of nobodies who got lucky with their license, so to speak, and good for them. But eventually, they didn't really have the funds to support it. They didn't have the sales, the marketing, the skills to be able to pull it off. The ratings weren't quite there as a result of it. And then along comes what is now known as Bell Media, and they buy it. And then they slowly turn it into a pop station. So I'm not trying to sound defeatist and saying we could never have that. It's just that we have still, by radio standards and what radio companies, media companies want, they want really big numbers. They want really big. What happened
to Radio Caroline? Do you remember when the guy had a boat off the shores of England?
Yeah.
Pirate radio.
Pirate radio.
Yeah,
the boat that rocked, that movie.
Hasn't somebody done actual podcast radio station to where they can go live?
You get a guy like Todd who wants to do it, and he wants to go. He goes to the CRTC and the audio video licensing.
You shouldn't have to go to the CRTC.
He shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to. He should be able to declare what he's playing, and it should be protected by copyright. You're absolutely correct.
Somebody should start actual pirate radio and play all.
Put your middle finger in the air and play the goddamn song.
I guess we got something to do next week.
Yeah. That's what we were lucky enough to do. Myself and my friend Rob Gray were lucky enough to do at CFOX. We were coming in off the street. Two idiots that had just gotten out of radio school, and we had been given carte blanche to play hard rock and alternative, and we were playing everything from Rage to Slayer to the Beastie Boys, whatever we wanted for an hour.
Metallica and Tool.
Bands, we
I bet you that was a great hour.
It was a great hour. And you hear the programmers cringing at home as they're laying in bed going, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah. Well, there's still the university stations like the SFU.
There are, but they've got such a small audience, right?
Exactly. Well, and also you're just listening to our shows here and there, so you're not getting.
People aren't doing that
variety.
now. It's a podcast world. It's an on-demand world. It's a playlist world. And so radio, the thirst for radio has really changed in the multimedia world.
And I know how to fix that. There's a few things that I wanted to mention on radio, being that I did radio for 20 years. Never do I have people come up to me and go, dude, I remember that day that you played Pearl Jam's Even Flow. Like, never. That never happens. But people still to this day, I haven't been in radio now for 6 years. Still to this day, people go, dude, that rock report was amazing. Because you played songs that nobody else played.
You guys programmed it yourself.
Danger and I programmed, and Jeff O'Neill, when Jeff was doing it with me as well, we literally were playing whatever we wanted to play. And of course, that as a specialty show in radio, they want those hours or that 15 minutes or whatever they've set aside for these specialty programs. They want those shows to outperform what the radio station is doing as a whole. And it did. Yeah. And the Rock Report did that because of, you could feel the energy of these two music geeks talking about whatever the band was and playing just something that's so left field, or just playing an album cut. It doesn't need to be Enter Sandman from Metallica. It could be Holier Than Thou. It could be Through the Never. Still great songs. Still an amazing band. Still a core artist. And that will get the people that are listening to your radio station actually talking about your radio station. Yeah. If you keep playing Sad But True and Enter Sandman, there's no chance people are going to say, wow, did you hear Seafox today?
It did the same thing as yesterday. You should have heard it.
0% chance of that happening. Now, to my other point of how radio can be fixed, and when you fix radio, it will address everything that we've been talking about here tonight. One thing for radio, and there's three things that radio could do and should do to get out of where they're stuck right now. They're stuck in a rut. They're still doing the same format that they've been doing literally since the 60s. They play the biggest songs. They do commercial breaks that are 4 minutes long. They do 30-second commercials. They sometimes do 60s. They get away from that. They give power back to the DJ. That's number one. So if you have a really good phone call with somebody and the call ends up with them talking about whatever it is, an album track from Rage. We can't play that because you're not allowed to. You're literally going to lose your job if you play that. But why not? Why can't you? So for continuity and just for having your radio show be more fluid, give the power back to the DJ. It doesn't mean that they're going to completely derail the radio station, but that's number one. Number two is play album cuts from the big artists within that genre. Absolutely. So instead of, again, not Metallica, it could be anything. Foo Fighters, Nirvana, it could be any of the core artists in all genres. And the other thing, and this is the main thing, support your local artists. Instead of playing 15,000 Pearl Jam songs, play them 12,000 and give 3,000 to a local artist. Instead of playing Tragically Hip 20,000 times, Love the Hip, play them 15,000, give the 5,000 over that year to the local bands. Now suddenly, I can't remember who was saying, I think it was you were saying that, they don't get any play. Now suddenly they get played. Yeah. Now they're addressing the local scene. Now the bands that are being played are telling their friends to come out support. Hey, I heard your song on the afternoon show on Seafox. That's not happening now, but if that happened, maybe those venues wouldn't be closing down. Maybe our scene would be bigger than what it is.
Agreed.
Well, there's a story.
Simple fixes, but
there's
you
a
think
story
it would
here.
you think it would be simple, but because of the structure of where radio is at, it's almost impossible. What I just said.
Well, there's a story back in, I think it was 1969. My father and about 6 other people went down to Ottawa to force a radio in Canada to play people from actually Canada, because there was not one song being played. Right. So it's almost like we have to do that now. But for newer artists, spend the time and say you have to pay. Every day, play 18% of brand new artists.
They used to have that in CanCon regulations. It went away. There used to be rules about, okay, you have to play 30% or 35 or whatever you agreed to in your licensing. And X amount of it had to not have been in the top 40.
Yeah.
But then they deregulated all of that, and that's when all of those Jack FM style stations came in. And they wanted all of that. Yeah. So, but I was going to say, we just don't have the filters anymore. And again, now in an internet age with 50 million songs in your hand and Spotify for $14 a month, and all you get is a search box and good fucking luck after that. That's all you get. And what you had with radio was people who are going out to the clubs, producers, other people who are all on this panel, and other just scenesters would go out and check out bands that were local and say, you know what, this is a good band. And then it would get onto a local radio show at some point. Maybe just a couple of spins, but you don't have that opportunity. You don't have the Vancouver Seeds that CFOX had. You don't have the Peak Performance Project. Even CBC Radio is not really fostering local talent as much as they used to. So you've got all these big radio stations that have huge reach, not reaching people on Canadian talent. And then when people go looking for talent, they're forced into playlists. They're going to see a Drake record before they're going to see the record that they're looking for. And they get down a rabbit hole listening to music that they didn't really intend on listening to. And so the Canadian music consumer and the Canadian artist is constantly, we're splitting hairs. We've got so much,
Christina,
so many splits on that.
Can I offer then, just to that point, a little case study? Do all of you know what Triple J's Hottest 100 is? So Triple J is, I think, a perfect solution for it helps to solve the whole, it's a smaller audience. Australia is not a massive nation. And I grew up on Triple J. I spent 7 years in Australia. And they basically it's a government-funded radio station, but for 4 weeks before the start of the year or some part of the year, they get all of their audience to vote on their favorite local music. And then they present it as the Hottest 100, and it comes out as a CD. And I'm not sure if it's always local, but the engagement level is there. And it's 4 weeks out of the year, but then it became this iconic thing. If I ever wanted to know what the next punk rock phase or rock phase was going to be and who the biggest names in Australia were, it was Triple J, because they made the effort, and it was a long game, but it really made sense. And I love the idea, Corinne, that you were saying about, local bands needing to have that opportunity. On the flip side of it, it gives the audiences a chance to have it's labeled, Triple J's called Australia's or the radio's greatest democracy. And I think that that's a beautiful opportunity for what you're doing in terms of spitballing ideas of how to create this magical, wonderful radio station that we've all got to go out and do now, that are a pirate ship that Garth is going to probably commandeer.
Right now in Canada, you've got certain companies that literally have the same playlist for a radio station in multi-markets. I won't mention any names, but I could tell you, sitting with a national program director, when you got an ad on certain radio stations for a song, when I was working at Sony and Capital EMI, if you got a song added to a radio station, you knew it was going in on Hamilton, you knew it was going in on Winnipeg, and you knew it was going in on Vancouver. All of a sudden, between those three cities, you've got a potential audience of about 6 million people. And an audience in a country of 35 million, you just knocked out a big chunk of audience.
And not only that, as soon as you get those markets, then other markets go, why are they playing that song? And maybe they'll give them a shake in their next.
So there's a positive to it, but there's
well.
also a huge negative in that the local band is not getting it. But the point is the big radio media companies were doing the same thing. There was no local programming. Right. It was they were programming local radio stations like they're programming satellite radio. I'm a huge satellite radio fan, but when it comes to local radio stations, where's the local other than the weather and who won the hockey game?
Right.
The Leafs won tonight.
Hey, by the way,
Who won the hockey game, Garth?
the Jets won 4-0 against the Canucks.
No.
Thanks, guys. We're going to roll now. We got to get you guys out of here. I can't thank you guys enough for joining tonight. I got to thank Team Nimbus for putting this on tonight. Big round of applause for them.
Thank you.
Look them up in Vancouver, please. Garth's wonderful team. We've got Ryan Jarman, Jeremiah Gowan, Michaela Lyons, Eat Gueler, and Brandon William Fletcher. So thanks, guys, for all your help putting this thing together. It was really, really great. The biggest thing about this and the biggest miracle about this was obviously a discussion about where we're going. We can go on for hours and hours and hours. But getting Garth and Dave on the same panel, because Dave owes Garth $25.
Yeah, Dave owes $25.
Dave owes Garth $25, and I told him that Garth might hit him.
Well, there's a reason why I like him down here.
That's why I separated them. But you said you have the $25.
Well, I've got some money in my pocket right now that I could actually give. Yeah,
I don't want
do
any
that.
fights.
I'll take whatever you get.
We need to know what this is about.
Well, there's probably a studio story we can't talk about.
And I should mention, if you want local Vancouver music.
This is actually pretty rare, seeing a musician put his hand in his pocket and come out with some money. So.
Put that on the internet.
Look at that $25, and then we have a little bit of a surprise. We have a little bit of a surprise for people. This doesn't look good on podcast as far as the look of it, but it's going to sound really great. Dave, you got something that you wanted to talk to Garth about?
I'm just going to put that there. You guys watch that. I'll be right back.
We're going to play some Jeopardy music.
Do, 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 do.
This is great. Okay, who's harmonizing?
I'm scared.
It's awesome.
So I was saying earlier that Garth was actually one of the early believers in our band and showed up when nobody else did, which was pretty incredible. So this year we were fortunate enough to win Breakthrough Group of the Year at the Junos, and we would like to share this on behalf of Chris and Aaron. And you open that up, and it's just kind of, we can't thank you enough for being the first person at the table.
Whoa.
Dude, that is incredible.
I get my $25 back though, right?
Is that the first Juno presented on a podcast? I'm not sure, but that's great. Dave, thanks for bringing that, and thanks for Washboard Union for suggesting it, because they brought it to our attention about wanting to do it. So, Garth,
thank you.
What do you got to say, my friend?
I'm in tears. Seriously, I am. Wow.
Congratulations, Garth. Congratulations to Washboard Union.
Thank you, guys. Oh, that's wow.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Thanks to all. Any last words, guys? Just
thank you for having us. What a lovely time.
Oh, this is fun. I love this room. I love what Nimbus is doing. I love what Garth has put together for students that want to learn. It gives them an opportunity to really dive in. They produced this whole thing for us today. So again, I can't thank you enough, Garth. You've got a great idea. Your team putting it together, Christina, everyone that was involved today. Everyone for showing up in a snowy January.
Yeah.
And Dave for making a Juno presentation. This was great. Garth, well deserved.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Cheers.
Yeah, pretty cool. We could do this with you guys for another 3 hours, by the way.
And
I feel like we're
Brenton.
just scratching the surface.
I really appreciate the range of experience too, because a lot of times I am, driving around going, why isn't there a better radio? You're complaining about these things, and I know my world. You guys know your world.
We all complain about the same thing.
Yeah. So, but it I feel like some ideas get percolated when you are talking with people who've got other experiences. So thanks for bringing this all together.
This is a cool station though that's close by in Seattle, KEXP. If you don't know them, they are wicked. Went and saw a show they did during Icelandic Festival in October. Saw this band Solstafir play there. Unreal. And thought, how did they do this? Like, never mind, did they have a band playing in their studio? They have bands playing there quite regularly. And
they do a lot of acoustic stuff too there.
Yeah, you go check out their site, their YouTube, KEXP. Crazy variety of stuff. And I was looking on their page and going, I don't even know who half of these bands are. And a good chunk of them I'm not even interested in. But however, I appreciated the variety. And it's like, I just don't know who these guys are. But the attention and how pro it is, like, this is college radio times 5,000. It's amazing. KEXP.
Thanks, JJ. That's awesome. Christina, you had one more thing?
I just wanted to say thank you to Creative BC, because it's because of them that we restored the room to look like this. They partially funded this room, and it's I'm so grateful for what they're doing.
Last time I was here was a rehearsal space, so
yeah.
That's awesome. Great spot. Thanks to you all.
Thanks, Brent.
Check out everybody's Toddcast podcast and listen to
local Vancouver music on the podcast. Nothing but.
Really, really great. Thanks to our giant studio audience for showing up. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's it for this session. This is episode 9 and 10 of the Brenton on Tour Music Cast as part of the podcast series that I'm doing, presented by the Toddcast podcast. Thank you very much, sir. Our friends at deanblundell.com. And coffee. Always, always coffee. Thank you, my friends. Until next time. Thanks, Brian.